Hours after being completely shut down in court, every single claim crushed, every argument dismantled, Prince Harry didn't retreat quietly, he exploded. Not just at the press, not just at the verdict, but at the very system built in his father's name. A prince accusing his own kingdom's justice system of betrayal. A royal declaring war on the courtroom itself. And the question that instantly ignited across Britain what pushed him to that edge, because this wasn't just about losing a case, this was about something deeper, something unraveling in real time.
Prince Harry has lost his multi-million-dollar lawsuit against the publishers of the Daily Mail.
Prince Harry has lost his £50 million case against the Daily Mail, but today, as he arrives for a speech at Chatham House the moment this devastating verdict is announced, I can tell you, he has also lost his reputation. This man lied in court. He committed perjury. And he can sue me if he wants.
£50 million.
£50 million, that's what he spent on this case.
Yes.
That's ridiculous. I mean, what is wrong with this guy? These are outrageous allegations against the Mail, and Harry has been utterly humiliated today, and he deserves it.
I mean, yeah, he's complaining to the judge, but judge, no, just like he's complaining to his dad right now, but dad, break the law and get me security. I mean, like, this guy's the most entitled, insufferable guy ever.
It's quite possible that the Daily Mail could now seek revenge on Harry and go after him for more millions, because they've been dragged through the mud on this one. And unfortunately, whether it's his charities, whether it's his business activities, or his relationship with the royal family, everything Harry touches turns to mud.
Look closely at that moment, because that wasn't just frustration, that was a man cornered. A man who had just watched 97 claims collapse in front of him like dominoes, one after another, with no resistance left. And yet, instead of silence, he chose confrontation. He called it a whitewash, a stitch-up. He didn't just lose, he rejected the legitimacy of the loss itself. But here's where it starts to feel unsettling, because courts don't deal in feelings, they deal in proof. And the deeper you go into what happened inside that courtroom, the more uncomfortable the pattern becomes.
The bitter irony is that his mother Diana liked the Mail. We were her paper. We took her side in her acrimonious breakup with Charles.
Inside that courtroom, something strange unfolded. Prince Harry, under oath, hand-raised, swearing truth, didn't behave like someone presenting facts. He behaved like someone trying to win an argument. He sparred, he resisted, he pushed back, and the judge, Justice Nicholan, did something almost unheard of. He tried to help him, calmly, gently, offering him a way out of the chaos, a quiet warning disguised as guidance. You don't need to fight every point. Let your lawyer handle it. But Harry didn't take the lifeline. He bristled. He resisted again, and in that moment, something shifted.
Harry appeared emotional and combative at points. The judge repeatedly reminded him that he was there to answer questions, not argue the case. The judge said, Justice Nicholan, who is, let's be honest, he's the king, isn't he? He's the boss. He said, you don't have to argue the case. You just need to answer the questions.
Because that moment didn't disappear. It lingered. It followed him. It echoed all the way through the final ruling, 436 pages of it, where patterns began to form. Not one contradiction. Not two, but a chain, a trail, a sequence of claims that slowly began collapsing under their own weight. And the first crack, it seemed almost harmless, almost forgettable, but it wasn't.
Part of Mr. White's job is to put allegations to you. This is a big moment. You're doing exactly what lots of litigants do. You tend to argue back about what he is putting to you. You don't have to bear the burden of arguing the case today that's for Mr. Sherborne.
I had a bad experience with Mr. Green.
You can simply say, I don't accept that, or I don't know about that.
I am intent on you not having a bad experience with me, but it is my job to ask you these questions.
But Paula, Harry now just seems to live in a bubble of paranoia where there is always some type of plot against him, even in his father's own courts.
He claimed his friends were loyal, that his circle was tight, that leaks were impossible, that any story about him must have been hacked because who else could have said anything? It sounded convincing until it didn't.
Anybody knows you get 10 of your friends and all of them have some information. There are any number of motivations for somebody to say, well, hey, I owe this reporter a favor, and so therefore I'm going to call a reporter and give them this information. Okay, fair play. And then in other cases, you know, people just talk.
Because then came the quiet dismantling. Not dramatic, not explosive. just precise. A royal editor calmly revealing that the details Harry swore were stolen came from someone who was there, someone sitting beside him, someone he trusted, someone who picked up the phone. And just like that, the entire foundation shifted, because suddenly it wasn't about hacking anymore. It was about human nature, about secrets that don't stay secrets.
My social circles were not leaky. I want to make that absolutely clear. I would have to cut contact with this person.
Tell 10 people something and it's no longer yours. That's not conspiracy. That's reality. And the judge made something very clear. Suspicion is not evidence. Belief is not proof. And without proof, everything falls apart.
Rebecca English rejected suggestions that stories about Harry and Chelsea Davy, his ex-girlfriend, came from hacking or blagging. She said details about Harry discussing Chelsea Davy around a campfire came from someone who had been present. The key quote, she said, "All I can say is that he did, and one of those people rang the news desk."
But here's where it gets uncomfortable, because this is the same man who claimed absolute loyalty from his friends while publishing deeply personal details about his own family to the world. His brother, his father, his stepmother, even his grandmother's final years. So the question started to hang in the air unanswered, but impossible to ignore. If he could reveal their secrets, why wouldn't others reveal his? And just when you think the contradictions can't get sharper, they do. Because suddenly, this isn't about friends anymore. This becomes personal. Deeply personal. A name surfaces, a voice from the past, silent for years, watching, waiting.
He's had a book out called Spare. They did a documentary about their lives. They did an interview with Oprah Winfrey. So what does Meghan know about privacy? And then even the kids. They're on Instagram the whole time, which is my understanding Harry's not happy about.
Charlotte Griffiths, 14 years of silence, 14 years of keeping something private that could have changed everything. And then suddenly she's in court, listening to a version of reality that doesn't match her memory, listening to a prince claim distance, deny familiarity, erase connection. And in that moment, something breaks, because she doesn't argue, she doesn't shout, she doesn't attack, she simply opens her phone. Messages, words, intimate, casual, unmistakable, mischief, movie snuggles, miss you. Read out loud. In court, under oath, and suddenly the silence of 14 years turns into the loudest contradiction in the room. The judge watches, listens, measures, and when he speaks, his words land with weight. She is credible, honest, careful, believable, and that word believable hangs in the air like a verdict before the verdict. And just when it seemed like the damage couldn't get deeper, something surfaced that changed the entire meaning of everything that came before it. Because this wasn't just about contradictions in the courtroom anymore. This was about what was known before the courtroom doors even opened. Reports began to circulate quiet at first, then louder that months before the verdict. During the disclosure phase, something unexpected landed in front of Harry's legal team. Not rumors, not secondhand claims, physical evidence, old journalist notebooks, not from last year, not from 5 years ago, from decades ago. Detailed, preserved, precise a record of where stories actually came from. And suddenly, the narrative Harry had been building began to collapse before it was even tested. According to insiders, this was the moment panic set in, because the assumption, quiet but critical, had always been that such records no longer existed. That time had erased them. That memory had faded. But instead, they were sitting there, intact, waiting. And if those reports are even partially true, then everything that followed starts to look different. Because what if the case didn't fall apart in court? What if it was already falling apart behind the scenes? What if the fight continued anyway, not from strength, but from a corner? And that's where the next revelation becomes impossible to ignore. Because the entire weight of this multi-million-pound case leaned heavily on one man, one witness, one statement that was supposed to prove everything. Gavin Burroughs, a former private investigator. The foundation, the key, the proof. Except he says it wasn't his. His words were not vague, not uncertain. Absolute, the statement attributed to him, he says he didn't write it. The signature, he says it was forged, traced, manufactured, and in that moment, the courtroom wasn't just dealing with weak evidence anymore. It was staring directly at something far more serious. Because if the central witness disowns the statement, then what exactly was holding the case together. The question that followed was chilling in its simplicity. Who created it and why? Because think about the implications. A case built on claims of wrongdoing, suddenly facing accusations of fabrication from within its own core. And yet, despite that explosion, despite the gravity of those words, the case didn't stop. It didn't pause. It didn't withdraw. It pushed forward. And that decision continuing despite everything unraveling raised even more questions than the allegations themselves. And then, just when it feels like the story has reached its peak, it twists again. Because the biggest contradiction wasn't spoken under oath. It wasn't revealed in a message. It wasn't hidden in a witness statement. It was something far more personal, far more symbolic. It was the justification Harry had been repeating for years. His mother. For years, Diana had been the emotional core of his battle against the press. The reason, the mission, the legacy he claimed to protect. But then came a voice from the past that cut straight through that narrative. Paul Daker, the editor who ran the Daily Mail during the very years in question. And what he revealed didn't just challenge Harry's case, it challenged the foundation of his argument entirely. Because according to Daker, Diana didn't see the paper as an enemy. She engaged with it, trusted it, even relied on it during some of the most turbulent moments of her life. And suddenly, the story flips. Because if that's true, if the very institution Harry tried to destroy was one his mother actually worked with, then what exactly was he fighting for? A truth? Or a version of it? By the time the verdict finally landed, the courtroom had already told its story. Every claim dismissed, every argument rejected. And instead of reflection, instead of recalibration, Harry responded with escalation. He called it a whitewash, a fixed outcome. He didn't just challenge the press, he challenged the court itself. A court that operates in the name of the crown, in the name of his father. And that's where the consequences begin to stretch beyond a single case. Because this is no longer just about newspapers or evidence or witnesses. This is about a royal figure openly questioning the legitimacy of the very system that defines his position. A line that once crossed doesn't easily disappear. Meanwhile, outside the courtroom, the ripple effects were already spreading. Financial pressure mounting, relationships straining, reports of frustration behind closed doors, Meghan notably absent throughout the proceedings, insiders suggesting tension, disagreement, even regret, because this wasn't just a legal loss. It was a public one, a visible one that can't be quietly rewritten. And now, as the dust settles, a different kind of question lingers. Not about the past, but about what comes next. Because another case is already waiting. More scrutiny, more exposure. And this time, the expectations are different. The tolerance is thinner. The stakes are higher. So what happens when someone who refuses to back down runs out of ground to stand on? What happens when every move forward only deepens the uncertainty behind them? Because right now, the story isn't ending. It's shifting, quietly, unpredictably, and somewhere between what was said, what was proven, and what was believed, the truth is still moving.